A very warm regards to my dear students of grade 3. Today I am going to start with English literature, that is your English prose. Lesson number 1 on the pasture. This lesson is written by a Swiss novelist, Johanna Spyri. Okay, she is a Swiss novelist and her famous writing is a story of Heidi. This lesson is also a story about a little girl, Heidi. Now let us understand what is the meaning of the word pasture. Pasture is a place where the animals like cow, goat, they go to eat grass. It is a land that is having fresh green grass for the cattle like cow, goat, where they feed themselves with grass. Okay, that is a place where you find green grass. Now we start with the reading part. This is the picture of the hillside. They are telling you how, they are just asking you how do you feel, have you ever been there, and to share your experiences in groups. Had we been together, we would have formed groups and discussed our experience and thoughts about visiting a hillside or being to the mountain. Okay. Now let us start reading and explain to you as and when I go on. Okay. Heidi was awakened early next morning by a loud whistle. So Heidi is the name of a girl. She is sleeping and early next morning she was awakened by a loud whistle. Now let us see who is whistling, who is making this loud whistle sound. Opening her eyes, she saw her little bed and the hay beside her bathed in golden sunlight. So she is not sleeping in a proper on a proper bed. She is having a bed made out of grass, you can see. Okay, and she is sleeping in a hut. Okay, you can see there is grass everywhere and you can see a stack of grey hay also. So it is just a rough bed that she is sleeping on. And there is bright sunlight filtering through this gaping hole. Can you see in this? This is a wooden work somewhere. Okay, they are staying in a hut. This is a gaping hole inside that hut wherein the sunlight is filtering in, and she is awakened by the loud whistle sound. Okay. For a short while, she did not know where she was, but when she heard her grandfather's deep voice outside, she recollected everything. So now you understood this loud whistle was made by one. I guess this deep whistle is loud whistle is made by some other person. But she heard her grandfather speaking to that other person who made this whistling sound. Okay, and before she was confused as to exactly where she was lying down, but then she recollected that just one day before she had come to stay with her grandfather, and there she was sleeping, and when she was awakened, she could hear her grandfather speaking to someone outside. And then she remembered that she is not in her usual home, but she has come to stay with her grandfather. She remembered how she had come up the mountain the day before and left old Ursula, who was always shivering with cold, and sat near the stove all day. So now she started remembering everything that she has come one day before to stay with her grandfather, and before coming to the mountainside, she was staying with one old woman named Ursula, who was always feeling cold, and she was shivering with the cold and sitting near the stove all the time. Okay, because she was old, she could feel the cold, the shiver every time, and to ward off that shivering, she was always keeping herself warm by sitting near the stove. Okay, they have this warm place, this place where they can keep themselves warm. Wooden fireplace. Some houses have fireplace where they burn the logs of wood to keep the house as well as the people inside the house warm, because this is a place where it is cold for the long duration of time. So to keep themselves warm, they sit by the fireplace, and this lady who is old, she sits by the stove. While Heidi lived with Ursula, she had always been obliged to keep in the house where the old woman could see her. So the meaning of the word obliged means forced. So because she is a small girl, obviously being small, everyone likes to play outside. But this little girl was forced to keep herself indoors because this lady Ursula, being old, she was not able to she did not allow actually Heidi to play outside, and she was always kept indoors so that she could be within the sight of the women, this old lady Ursula. Being deaf, Ursula was afraid to let Heidi go outdoors, and the child had often fretted in the narrow room and had longed to run outside. So you can see she was forced to keep herself inside the house because this lady Ursula, she did not allow Heidi to go outdoors and play with other children. The reason being is that she was deaf. This lady was deaf, and she was afraid that in case if Heidi goes outside, she may get lost, or she may not. She may get lost. There could be many reasons why the lady did not allow this little girl to play outside. But this main reason is that she wanted to be within her sight so that she can keep an eye on her. And because she was deaf, she was not able to, allow her to go outside and play with other children. And because of that, this little girl, she had to stay in a narrow room, and she always wanted to run outside and play with her friends. So meaning of this fretted is to be unhappy, to be anxious and unhappy. If you're not happy about something and you feel that you need to speak up, then you start complaining to your parents. This is this, this is that. So it's like you are unhappy and then you start complaining. It's like you're fretting. Meaning of the word fretted is to be unhappy and start complaining about something. Okay. She was therefore delighted to find herself in a new home and hardly could wait to see the goats again. So now you understood why she was so happy, why she was so delighted to be at her grandfather's place, because it is a home, it is a mountainside home where the grandfather is staying with the along with the nature, and it's a free home. Anybody is allowed to go outside, and because this grandfather had goats, so Heidi was allowed to go along with the goats so that these animals could feed themselves on the pasture. So the lesson on the pasture. Now you can understand why the lesson name is on the pasture. This is a green grass It's a place where green grass, lizard and the cattle, animals like cow, goats can feed themselves. Okay, they can graze, they can eat the grass. Jumping out of bed, she put on her few things and in a short time went down the ladder and ran outside. So you're gonna see, as soon as she is out of a bed, she is not actually kept indoors. She can move out of the house anytime she wants to go. So it's a freedom, complete it's a complete freedom. No restriction, no staying indoors, no putting keeping oneself in a narrow room. It's complete freedom in the grandfather's house. Putting on her few things, like she dressed herself up in the, because she's a small child, she dressed herself up in the few clothings that she had. A short time she went down the ladder. Okay, she was sleeping somewhere upstairs. She went down the staircase ladder and she ran outside. Complete freedom. You can see no restrictions, no bars. Peter was already there with his flock, waiting for Schwanelli and Barley, whom the grandfather was just bringing to join the other goats. So, grandfather had purchased the two goats, Schwanelli and Barley, and grandfather was telling Peter is a little boy who was taking the goats to the pasture so that the goats can eat the green grass. So because his two new goats were there, he had come with his flock of goats. Flock of goats means many goats are there, not just one or two. It's a group of goat. Okay, flock of goat, and grandfather had brought two new goats to join the other goats. Do you want to go with him to the pasture? Asked the grandfather. So very first question grandfather asked Heidi was, do you want to join Peter to the pasture so that you can also have, you can also enjoy yourself by the mountainside. You can also enjoy yourself along with the nature. So obviously the answer is yes, cried. Yes, cried Heidi, clapping her hands. She is very much delighted, very much happy to be out in the open. She wants to be completely free to go outside and enjoy herself. So obviously Heidi replied, clapping her hands, as yes, she wanted to go outside with Peter with the goats. Go now and wash yourself first, for the sun will laugh at you if he sees how dirty you are. Everything is ready there for you, he added, pointing to a large tub of water that stood in the sun. So first thing grandfather said to Heidi was to wash herself, to have a bath. First to have a bath, otherwise he made fun of her by saying that the sun will laugh at you if he sees how dirty you are. Do you think the sun laughs if you go outside dirty faced? No, it's just a joke, a little joke that grandfather cracks on the little girl Heidi. And he also tells her that everything is kept ready for you, pointing to a large tub of water that stood in the sun, means that was kept in the outside the hut. Okay, Heidi did as she was told and washed and rubbed herself till her cheeks were glowing. So she is an obedient girl, you can see. She did not say no, I will not have a bath, or she did not refused her grandfather. She did as her grandfather told her. So she is an obedient girl and she washed herself clean till her cheeks were glowing, means warm and shining. Okay, because she is a healthy girl, her cheeks were glowing. In the meanwhile, the grandfather called to Peter to come into the hut and bring his bag along. So till Heidi was getting ready, she was having a bath, till the time she was getting ready, grandfather called out to Peter and told him to bring his bag along. So something has to be put in the bag. That is the reason why grandfather told him to come inside the hut. So his grandfather is staying in a small hut. It is not a huge bungalow. It is not a flat. He is staying in a small hut by the mountainside. Okay. The boy followed the old man, who commanded him to open the bag in which he carried his scanty dinner. So scanty means very little, few in quantity, very little. Anything that is small in size, very little, very few, that is known as scanty. So because the boy is poor, Peter is a poor boy, he carried very little for his dinner, and that is what was there in his bag. Now the grandfather put something for Heidi. The grandfather put in the bag a piece of bread and a slice of cheese that were easily twice as large as those the boy had in the bag himself. Now this is a food that grandfather packed for Heidi, and it was really twice as large, means the quantity was more. The food quantity for that grandfather packed for Heidi was more than the boy that he had in his bag. Yes. So that's all for today. We continue with the session in the next video. Thank you and have a nice day.